Lucifer was one of the most beautiful and indescribable beings created by God, with his wisdom and beauty being described as perfect. However, despite being considered a perfect, beautiful, and glorious being by countless angels, Lucifer was extremely proud and rebelled against his father after refusing to bow down to Adam and Eve. Therefore, Lucifer is known as the first sinner, the devil, and the adversary. Now, Lucifer didn't create any angels, only God has that power, but Lucifer did trick some of them into rebelling against God and becoming his followers, claiming he was more powerful than God and would take God's place as ruler of the universe. They believed him, and since then, Lucifer has used them to do his will. He's known for the deadly sin of pride, and he used his pride to persuade them. I will ascend to heaven, I will raise my throne above the stars of God, I will make myself the most high. Isaiah 14. Lucifer also sends the worst people up to earth to wreak havoc and terrorize everyone, as well as tries to tempt non-sinners to the dark side, so be safe. Number 9. The Watchers. The Watchers are angels that were dispatched to Earth to watch over the humans. They taught them arts and technologies such as weaponry, cosmetics, mirrors, sorcery, and other techniques that would otherwise be discovered gradually over time by humans. Now, watching over humans seems like an easy job to do, but like typical men, they began to lust for the human women and started to procreate with them. What a shock. I mean, their name is literally the Watchers. All they had to do was watch, but no. Now, the offsprings of these unions were called the Nephilim, which are savage giants who were 1,000 feet tall, who pillaged the earth and endangered humanity. They also forced humans into slavery to produce more food, so, you know, that's nice. Now, due to all of this, God eventually found out and allowed the Great Flood to rid the earth of the Nephilim, but first sent Uriel to warn Noah as to not eradicate the human race. The Watchers messed up so bad that God needed a redo. Great job, guys. Really. Number 8. Beelzebub. In Christianity, the name Beelzebub may appear as an alternate name for Satan, or else may refer to the name of a lesser devil, but strictly speaking, they are two separate entities. This apparently derives from the New Testament's preservation of an otherwise unknown Jewish tradition in which Baal-zeb was thought of as the prince of demons. Now, in later Christian literature, Beelzebub is usually described as holding a high place in hell's hierarchy, and he is said to have originated in the order of the cherubim. According to the 16th century occultist John's Wires, Beelzebub is the chief lieutenant of Lucifer, who is the emperor of hell and presides over the Order of the Fly. Similarly, the 17th century exorcist Sebastian Michaels in The Admirable History placed Beelzebub among the 3 most prominent fallen angels, the other 2 being Lucifer and Leviathan. Now, the earliest case associating Beelzebub with witchcraft was the accusation of Jesus acting as a sorcerer and exorcist through his power. In the various later witchcraft scares, Beelzebub was frequently named as an object of supplication by confessed witches. Now, whether he actually helped these witches or not is another story, but he is a fallen angel that has turned evil. Number 7. Leviathan. Leviathan became a demon of darkness and chaos and leader of hell mentioned in the Book of Enoch. Leviathan is one of Lucifer's arms and one of the faces of the devil in Christianity. He's also the representation of the sin envy. Leviathan is a tamer of beasts, a beast collector, and an excellent strategist. He has the power to summon hellish whales that are natural inhabitants of hell and use them in battle. He appears as a huge sea beast, a very powerful species of sea serpent dragon. Now, this form is so colossal that it's said to be capable of frightening the bravest of men and is capable of swallowing fishing boats and even ships. Now, its scales are several small teeth throughout its body, similar to a shark's body, and in his human form, Leviathan appears as a handsome young man in his late teens. Although his appearance is similar to human, he has fish gills on his neck and his ears are pointed. He also has small shark-like teeth that are hidden under a thin layer of skin in his mouth. Now, like the name suggests, he is a very jealous person, with Lucifer often being the target though. It should be noted that Leviathan's jealousy isn't limited only to him, so you should watch out. Number 6. Mammon. Mammon in the New Testament of the Bible is commonly thought to mean money, material wealth, or an entity that promises wealth and is associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. After the rebellion in heaven, Mammon was banished to hell, where he is one who finds underground precious metal that his demonic companions used to build their capital city, Pandemonium, by Lucifer's order. Mammon is a fallen angel described as being more interested in heaven's pavements than a leader. He tells the other fallen angels to be content in hell and to be happy with what they have got, and to create a home for themselves in hell. He is one of the 7 princes of hell, each representing the 7 deadly sins, and Mammon represents greed and is known as the treasure of hell, and was said to have had dealings with the Greek deity Zeus. It is thought that when you made a deal with the devil for wealth and fame, you were making it with Mammon. Number 5. Leviathan. Leviathan became a demon of darkness and chaos and a leader of hell mentioned in the book of Enoch. Leviathan is one of Lucifer's arms and one of the many faces of the devil in Christianity. He is also the representation of the sin envy. Leviathan is a tamer of beasts, a beast collector, and an excellent strategist. He has the power to summon hellish whales that are natural inhabitants of hell and use them in battle. Leviathan appears as a huge sea beast, a very powerful species of a sea serpent dragon. This form is so colossal that it's said to be capable of frightening the bravest of men and is capable of swallowing fishing boats and even ships. Its scales are several small teeth throughout its body, similar to a shark's body. Now, in his human form, Leviathan appears as a handsome young man in his late teens. Although the appearance is similar to a human, he has fish gills on his neck and his ears are pointed. He also has a small shark-like teeth that are hidden under a thin layer of skin in his mouth. Like his name suggests, he is a very jealous person, with Lucifer often being the target though. It should be noted that Leviathan's jealousy isn't limited to only him, so you should watch out. Number 4. Lucifer. Lucifer was one of the most beautiful and indescribable beings created by God, with his wisdom and beauty being described as perfect. However, despite being considered a perfect, beautiful, and glorious being by countless angels, Lucifer was extremely proud and rebelled against his father after refusing to bow down to Adam and Eve. Therefore, Lucifer is known as the first sinner, the devil, and the adversary. Now, Lucifer didn't create any angels, only God had that power, but Lucifer did trick some of them into rebelling against God and becoming his followers, claiming that he was more powerful than God and would take God's place as the ruler of the universe. They believed him, and since then, Lucifer has used them to do his will. He's known for the deadly sin of pride, and he used his pride to persuade them. I will ascend to heaven, I will raise my throne above the stars of God, I will make myself like the Most High. Isaiah 14. Lucifer also sends the worst people up to earth to wreak havoc and terrorize everyone, as well as tries to tempt non-sinners to the dark side, so be safe. Number 3. Abaddon. Abaddon is considered the ruler of all demons in the 7th layer of hell, violence, and also the commander of the locusts of Abaddon. Now, what are the locusts? Well, they're scorpion-tailed warhorses that have a man's face with lion's teeth. They are commanded to torment anyone for 5 months who does not have the seal of God on their forehead by using their scorpion-like tails. So, yeah. He rules them. He has eyes as black as night and a huge mouth with many sharp teeth like those of a great white shark. In addition, he wears black armor and his wings have even turned dark. Abaddon is sometimes referred or foreshadowed as death, as they both are neutral entities of 2 opposing forces. He is also considered both an angel and demon, with neutral and at times lawful agents of both heaven and hell. It is unknown where his allegiance lies. He's often bringing judgment upon people in the name of God, implying that he works for the Almighty. That being said, Abaddon has also caused events that God would never have wanted to happen, let alone the fact that Abaddon helped Lucifer during the war in heaven. Seems like he liked to play both sides. It's also said during Judgment Day he will gather the souls of the damned and carry them down to the place of God's final judgment. Number 2. Asmodeus. Asmodeus is a demon who personifies and represents lust, the sexual sin related to adultery. He is the demon who exists as the arch-rival of the angel of chastity, Gabriel. Asmodeus is also referred to as one of the 7 princes of hell and represents one of the 7 deadly sins, being lust. Asmodeus is a demon of lust and is therefore responsible for twisting people's sexual desires. It is said that people who fall to Asmodeus' ways will be sentenced to an eternity in the 2nd level of hell. He is also a demon of lechery, jealousy, anger, and revenge. In hell, Asmodeus looks human, however he has stark black eyes and 2 rows of of shark teeth sticking out of his mouth. In this form, Asmodeus has no hair on his head, but has a muscular appearance from the waist up and 2 bat wings protruding from his back. From the waist down, he has what looks like kangaroo legs and a long dragon's tail. His horrible appearance is capable of causing fear and repudiation in humans who fall into hell, and that's the demon's intention. And coming up at number 1 is Satan. Satan is a prominent demon in the hierarchy of hell. He is known for bringing evil and temptation, and is known as the deceiver who leads humanity astray. Satan is even able to take control of the life of a person in the stead of God, though only to an extent to what God allows. Satan would appear to those who are sinful, playing into their hearts and towing them into despair. He may either be depicted as a rebel to the will of God, or as one who tempts mankind to commit sin to show God that mankind can easily be led astray from him. He is described as the ruler of the demons and the god of this age. In Revelation, Satan appears as a great red dragon who is ultimately banished from heaven by Michael the archangel. Satan is mostly known as the devil, and although the book of Genesis does not mention him, he is often identified with the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Satan is also said to be associated with one of the 7 deadly sins, being wrath, and is one of the 7 princes of hell. Number 10, Legion. Jesus encounters a possessed man and calls on the demon to emerge, demanding to know its name, which is an important element of traditional exorcism practice. He finds the man is possessed by a multitude of demons who give the collective name of Legion. So yeah, this demon is made of countless evil spirits able to incarnate into a physical body or separate into their respective forms at will. While the types of demons that make up Legion is unknown, they are said to be the same kind of demon that would inhabit a host and would have a single hive mind. Speaking of which, the demons of Legion do act like a hive mind, always speaking in unison and always knowing what the other demon is thinking and preparing to do. Legion appears as a floating sphere that is protected by an outer shell composed of massive innumerable humanoid bodies. This enormous lump of flesh conceals an inner core whose identity can vary. Legion, when possessing a human body, begins to torture the psychological person, making them have depressive and negative thoughts to erase any desire of life from its hosts. Their attitude of possessing human bodies is seen as a horrible act to most angels, as it deprives humans of their only weapon, free will. Number 9, Furfur. Furfur, also known as Furcifer, is a demon who is said to be the Count of Hell, leading 26 legions. He speaks in a hoarse voice, has a fiery tail, and usually appears as a stag. He is said to be able to make men and women fall in love, and also has command over great storms. He gives true answers to all things past, present, and future, but he must first be commanded to enter a magic triangle, for if not, he will lie and deceive the conjurer. But if he enters the triangle, he will answer truly and gladly speak about divinity, the creation of the world, himself, and other fallen angels. He can also destroy all the conjurer's enemies by burning them up, and if the magician requests it, he will not suffer temptations from any spirit or in any form. Furfur can also supposedly be called upon when a mortal wishes to take vengeance on other demons. This is likely included in his capability to destroy the conjurer's enemies. And I just gotta say, how scary can a demon be if its name is literally Furfur? It sounds like a name someone would give their cat. Number 8, Beelzebub. Beelzebub is a former Seraphian turned into high-ranking demon who is considered one of the 7 princes of hell and oversees the Order of the Fly. In Catholic demonology, he is sometimes considered to be one of the first 3 angels to fall from heaven, along with Lucifer and Leviathan. He is also often confused with Satan, and the 2 names can be interchanged. However, strictly speaking, they are 2 separate entities. Beelzebub is the chief lieutenant of Lucifer and is one of the most loyal. He is commonly described as placed high in the hierarchy of hell and is seen as being associated with envy. He is also the prince of false gods, and flies play a large focus in imagery detailing him. The malignant spirit can even take the form of flies, according to some. I mean, ever heard of Lord of the Flies? Yup, that's him. Number 7, Mammon. Mammon in the New Testament of the Bible is commonly thought to mean money, material wealth, or an entity that promises wealth and is associated with the greedy pursuit of gain. After the rebellion in heaven, Mammon was banished to hell, where he is the one who finds underground precious metals that his demonic companions used to build their capital city, Pandemonium, by Lucifer's order. Mammon counsels the devils to be happy with what they've got and to create a home for themselves in hell. He is one of the 7 princes princes of hell, each representing the 7 deadly sins. Mammon represents greed and is known as the treasurer of hell, and was said to have had dealings with the Greek deity Zeus. It is thought that when you make a deal with the devil for wealth and fame, you are making it with Mammon. Number 6. Belphegor. Belphegor is a demon lord that presides over the sin of sloth and is one of the 7 princes that rules hell. He also assists people to make discoveries. For example, he seduces people by suggesting to them ingenious inventions that will make them rich and they wouldn't have to work hard for it. As one of the fallen angels, Belphegor was originally a member of the Order of the Principalities, and after his fall, he became a demonic counterpart to one of the 10 Sephiroth that oversee the Tree of Life. He is the biblical enemy of the 6 Sephiroth, the patron angel of beauty. It's said that if Belphegor were to become too influential in the world, then the beauty of it all would become tainted, causing ruination. Number 5. Belphegor. Belphegor is a demon lord that presides over the sin of sloth and is one of the 7 princes that rules hell. He also assists people make discoveries. For example, he seduces people by suggesting to them ingenious inventions that will make them rich, and they wouldn't have to work hard for it. As one of the fallen angels, Belphegor was originally a member of the Order of Principalities, and after his fall, became a demonic counterpart of one of the 10 Sephiroth that oversee the Tree of Life. He is the biblical enemy of the 6 Sephiroth, the patron angel of beauty. It's said that if Belphegor were to become too influential in the world, then the beauty of all would become tainted, causing ruination. Number 4. Cherubim. Cherubim are often depicted as cute little babies with wings, but that is most definitely not the case. Cherubim are featured in the book of Ezekiel, and they are described as having the likeliness of a man and having 4 faces. That of a man, a lion on the right side, an ox on the left side, and an eagle. Now the 4 faces represent the 4 domains of God's rule. The man represents humanity, the lion wild animals, the ox domestic animals, and the eagle birds. Now these faces peer out from the center of an array of the 4 wings, and these wings are joined to each other, 2 of which are stretched upward and the other 2 cover their bodies. Now under their wings are human hands, their legs are described as straight, and their feet like those of a calf, shining like polished brass. Between the creatures, glowing coals that move between them could be seen. Their fire went up and down, and lightning burst forth from it. They also move like flashes of lightning, and to me this is just terrifying, and I would run far away from this. Number 3. Trumpeting angels. The trumpeting angels are 7 angels, each with a trumpet, and when they are sounded one at a time, it cues apocalyptic events. Now, are they good or bad? Well, that really depends on how you see it. Upon the sound of the first trumpet, hail and fire mingled with blood is thrown to earth, burning up 1/3 of the trees on the planet and all green grass. With the sounding of the second trumpet, something described as a great mountain burning with fire plunges into the sea and turns 1/3 of all the oceans into blood. Soon after, 1/3 of all sea life and 1/3 of all ships will be destroyed. With the sounding of the third trumpet, a great star called Wormwood falls to the earth, poisoning 1/3 of the planet's freshwater sources, such as rivers and springs. And it's said many will die from the bitterness of its taste. Now following the sound of the fourth trumpet, 1/3 of light that shines from the sun, moon, and stars becomes dark from the celestial bodies being struck. The fifth trumpet prompts a personified star to fall from heaven, and the star is given a key to the bottomless pit. After opening it, the smoke that rises out of the pit darkens the air and blocks the sunlight. Then from out of the smoke, the locusts, scorpion-tailed war horses that have a man's face with lion's teeth, are unleashed. They are commanded by their king, Abaddon, to torment anyone who does not have the seal of God on their forehead by using their scorpion-like tails. When the sixth trumpet sounds, 4 angels are released from their binds in the great river Euphrates, and they command a force of 200 million mounted troops whose horses exude plagues of fire, smoke, and brimstone from their mouths. The horses have a lion's head and tails as well, and are serpent-like with a head. Now the plagues exuding from the horses will end the lives of 1/3 of all mankind, and when the seventh trumpet sounds, loud voices in heaven will say, "The kingdom of the world has become the kingdom of our Lord and his Messiah, and he will reign forever and ever." So yeah, I don't really even know what to say, it just sounds terrifying. Number 2, Ophanim. Ophanim are a class of celestial beings who are very wise, known as an angel of knowledge. These angels never sleep as they guard the throne of God. In Christian angelology, they are the ones of the choirs, classes of angels, and are also called thrones. Now, what do they look like? Well, none other than 4 eye-covered wheels, each composed of 2 nested wheels. Flaming wheels in the sky, constantly spinning with hundreds of eyes covering it. It's a no from me, because that just sounds horrifying. Now, they're always watching and they're making sure that everything lines up with God's will. And what happens if they see something not so holy? You get punished. Now, what is the punishment? I don't know, and I don't think I want to find out. And coming in at number 1 is Abaddon. Abaddon is described as Destroyer, the angel of the abyss. In the book of Revelation of the New Testament, Abaddon is described as the king of the army of locusts. You know, the scorpion-tailed war horses that have a man's face with lion teeth that torments for 5 months anyone who does not have the seal of God on their foreheads. You know, those ones I just mentioned before. Yeah, well, he's their king. So if you thought they were bad, watch out. It's said during Judgment Day that he will gather the souls of the damned and carry them down to the place of God's final judgment, so that's great.
Starting with number 10, the preliminary ways you can avoid Armageddon. Before we dive into the horrors of the end, some of you might be wondering if and how you can escape the final fate of the earth without, leaving it. So according to the final book of the Bible, titled The Apocalypse of John, and no, that's not the same as John the Baptist, nor is it the John who wrote the 4th Gospel, just some dude named John. You see, this entire set of events was bestowed onto John by a figure who many believe to be Jesus Christ himself, albeit with a double-edged sword protruding out of his mouth, which, by the way, is hardly the weirdest part of this book. But before laying out the prophecy, sword-mouthed Jesus gives John a little report card on the citizens of Earth in the form of 7 letters to the 7 churches of Asia. And it should be noted that in this context, the number 7 is supposed to symbolize completeness, meaning that these letters aren't addressed to the people of the time, but is actually meant for all people across all time, including you, so listen up. First, you're told to overcome adversity, which, let's be real, sounds kind of like an empty gesture when you're about to head into the freaking end of the world, but I digress, because if you do, you'll get to snack off the tree of life, which is pretty cool. Then we're told to keep our faith through trials, and if we do, we score a crown of life, and to ignore Satan's club and not to fear prison. We're also told to quit hanging out with the Nicolaitans, which is oddly specific. Next, if you haven't heard, patience and hard work are nice, but that prophetess promoting immorality and hanky-panky has gotta go. And for those of you who do, you'll be given an iron rod with which you can dash nations to pieces. Epic. Then we're told to stay vigilant and to keep our garments clean, because your name's in the book of life and we don't want any erasing happening. We're also told that we're rocking it with strength and honesty, and that to be weary of people trying to swipe the crowns of our heads. Metaphorically, I'm not talking about the royal family here. And finally, those of you who are lukewarm better pick a side. Lukewarm in this case means you neither are a believer nor are you an atheist, and for some reason, being an agnostic really pisses off God the most. So time to turn up the zeal and repent pronto, for which you'll snag a seat next to Jesus. Otherwise, Jesus Christ himself will spew you from his mouth. Imagine that. At number 9 are the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Let's get into it. The beginning of the end is marked by the opening of the 7 sacred seals, the first 4 of which each unleash one of 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, like most things in the Bible, the details are quite vague, but we definitely get the sense that these cowboys don't play nice. The first one's the least intimidating out of the bunch, said to be a crowned rider on a white horse carrying a bow with which to conquer. Following conquest is the horseman of war, who appears on a red horse and is granted a great sword to take peace from the earth. As you history buffs know, with war comes famine, and so the next dude who rides a black horse is ordered to make barley and wheat go through inflation, but is explicitly told to leave oil and wine alone for some reason. Finally, the 4th seal is opened, revealing a rider on a pale horse. This rider is the only one given a name, dubbed Death, or the Grim Reaper if you will, and wherever the Reaper goes, Hades follows. Yes, the same Hades from the Greek pantheon for some reason. And unlike the first 3 horsemen, who are each given a weapon or tool of some sort, this last guy is given a quarter of the earth to eliminate with sword, hunger, and disease, and monsters. Now, before I get into the cataclysms of cosmic proportions that forever change the topography of Earth, until it is destroyed. If you're enjoying the video so far, do me a favor and let YouTube know you want to see more of our content by giving the video a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell. As promised, number 8 are the cataclysms. World-changing events of epic proportions are littered throughout the text, the first of which beginning with the opening of the 6th seal. For those of you who are keeping track, the 5th seal is pretty insignificant, just the souls of the martyrs begging to be avenged, to which God essentially replies, "Hold my beer." We start with a great earthquake during which the sun becomes pitch black and the moon turns red. What do celestial bodies have to do with shifting tectonic plates, you ask me? I have no idea. Then every mountain and island is moved out of its place, forcing people of Earth to retreat into caves for some reason. After the 7th seal is opened, an angel is given a gold censer filled with heavenly fire and throws it to the earth. What follows are peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Next, 7 heavenly trumpets are sounded, the first causing hail, fire, and blood to rain down on the earth, scorching a third of all of Earth's plant life. Next, the planet is hit with a meteor, which is described in the text as a great burning mountain falling from the sky and landing in the ocean, eliminating a third of the sea creatures and a third of ships at sea. Similarly, a great star named Wormwood falls from heaven and poisons a third of all rivers and springs. When the 4th trumpet sounds, a third of the sun, the moon, and stars are dimmed, creating complete darkness for a third of the day and night. Lots of thirds there. Now, there'll be a few more catastrophes like these as we continue forward, but for now, God decides to take a break with number 7, Abaddon the Destroyer, the Angel of the Abyss. Can't quite have a biblical end of days without a swarm of locusts tearing it up. Well, I mean, to call these things locusts is a bit of an understatement. It's more like a swarm of tiny demons. Let me explain. Essentially, with the sound of the 5th trumpet, a star falls to the earth, creating a bottomless pit from which smoke arises like a gigantic furnace to darken the sun and sky. Again. And from out of the smoke, locusts with scorpion stingers and human faces and lion's teeth dressed in tiny iron chest plates. Please pull up a depiction editor if you can. Good lord, look at that. Gotta love the biblically accurate. The locust abominations are joined by their leader, the Angel of the Abyss, who's referred to as Abaddon in Hebrew and Apollyon in Greek. Abaddon meaning destroyer, and Abaddon translating either to destruction or doom, so definitely not the kind of angel you'd want to bump into. Speaking of evil angels, at number 6 are the 4 angels of the Euphrates River. Now, we're not giving many details about these particular angels, other than the fact that they're held captive at the ancient Euphrates River. Now, they behave exactly like demons, and considering demonic spirits are just angels who've turned to the dark side, calling these beings bound to the Euphrates angels seems like we're giving them a bit more credit than they deserve. At least the last dude was literally named Apollyon. Anyways, the role these 4 angels play once released is to unalive a third of all mankind through a vast cavalry of unfathomable magnitude. Now, of course, it wouldn't be a book of Revelations without some terrifying amalgamations, so naturally, instead of riding regular old horses, the army of mounts are depicted as having snake-like tails and lion heads which breathe fire and smoke and sulfur, cause why not? Number 5, the Beast and the False Prophet. The first of 2 beasts emerges from the sea and is also sporting 7 heads and 10 horns, but this time he's rocking 10 crowns as opposed to Satan's 7. The beast itself took the form of a leopard with bear paws and lion's mouths. One of the 7 heads is a distinguishing wound which looks as though it should have been fatal, but the wound has healed and the head is very much alive. The heathens of the world marvel over this beast who is given the power and authority to rule over all of mankind and talk a bunch of smack about God. Next, another beast emerges from the earth this time, but this one's only got 1 head. Widely regarded as the false prophet or the Antichrist, this beast is described as having 2 horns like a lamb, but the voice of a dragon. This second beast performs miracles for mankind and is given the authority to command on behalf of the first beast. And so the Antichrist commands the people to build the statue of the first beast and breathes life into said statue, allowing the statue of the first beast to speak and demand all those who refuse to worship the image of the beast to be executed. It also forced everyone, young, old, rich and poor, free and enslaved, to receive the mark of the beast on their right hands or foreheads so that they could not buy or sell things unless they had the mark of the beast. And that, ladies and gents, is why the number 666 is associated with the devil. At number 4 is the kingdom of evil. The final 7 plagues, which are described as 7 bowls poured onto the earth, anticlimactically enough, mostly serve to finish off what's left from the previous plagues, or are directed towards the followers of the beasts, with the first plague being the manifestation of malignant and festering sores and boils that break out on those who carry the mark of the beast and worship its image. Bowl 2 is poured into the sea, turning it to blood and eliminating all remaining marine life. The third did the same with all fresh water, leaving the remaining inhabitants of earth with nothing to drink but blood. The fourth bowl is poured onto the sun, allowing it to scorch people with fire again. Bowl number 5 shrouds the kingdom of evil in perpetual darkness, leaving people gnawing at their tongues in agony, oddly enough. Now, bull number 6 is perhaps the most intriguing, and I'll break that down in just a second, but before I do, I'll just get out of the way that bull number 7 causes a great earthquake, heavy hailstorm, and somehow results in every island and mountain completely disappearing from the face of the earth. At number 3 is the Battle of Armageddon. Now let's quickly backtrack to bull number 6, which saw the Euphrates River completely dry up, thus paving the way for the kings of the east to come and invade. It's during this time that 3 demonic frogs, yeah, you heard me right, emerge from the mouths of either beast and the dragon to go on and assemble the kings in a place called Armageddon in preparation for the battle against God. And in the other corner of the ring, we have the army of God consisting of 144,000 pure of heart from the 12 tribes of Israel, who will ultimately emerge victorious over the beast with the destruction of New Babylon. Sidebar, the Euphrates River is currently actively drying up at an alarming rate, so I don't know, do with that info as you will. At number 2 is Judgment Day, the moment we've all been waiting for, the end of it all. Well, that is if you're on Team Satan. See, the beast and the false prophet are cast into the lake of fire, representing a permanent state of being unalive. Now, the dragon, on the other hand, is cast into the bottomless pit for 1,000 years, while the resurrected martyrs get to party with Christ in the meantime. Once a millennium has passed, the dragon is released and gathers the easily deceived for a final battle at the holy city, but the dragon and his army is ultimately defeated and cast into the lake of fire, along with the wicked, the essence of the unalive himself, and Hades, the Greek god of the underworld, for some reason. And now that suffering and this state of unaliveness has been completely purged from the world, God himself comes to party with humanity. And at number 1 are the 7 churches of Asia. For those of you who care enough to make it this far into the video, I've saved this last entry just for you to help you be better prepared for the end days. You see, this entire set of events is bestowed onto John by the Son of God himself, but before giving him the prophecy, he decides to give him a little report card on the citizens of Earth in the form of 7 letters to the 7 churches of Asia. And it should be noted that in biblical context, the number 7 is supposed to signify completeness, meaning that these letters aren't addressed to the people of the time, but are actually meant for all people across all time. So listen up. The first one is for the Church of Ephesus. Overcome and you'll get the snack off the tree of life. You're great at spotting fakes, but you've lost touch with your first love and are being called upon to rekindle that flame. For the second Church of Smyrna, keep faith through tough trials and score a crown of life. Ignore Satan's club and don't fear prison. For the Church of Pergamum, you're tough, but drop the bad doctrine and quit partying with Nicolaitans. For the Church of Thyatira, patience and hard work are nice, but that prophetess promoting immorality and hanky-panky? Gotta go. Those who follow the advice will be given an iron rod with which they can dash nations to pieces. I feel like everybody else is getting the short stick in comparison. The next one is the Church of Sardis. You've got some clean white garments waiting for you, but your works need a little sprucing up. Stay vigilant and boast those efforts because your name is in the book of life and we don't want any erasing happening. Next is Philadelphia. You're rocking it with your strength and your word is your bond. Keep that crown secure and don't let anybody swipe it. You're on your way to becoming a pillar in God's temple, complete with a shiny new name. And finally, Laodicea. I definitely butchered all those, by the way. You're the lukewarm ones of the bunch, and that's not a compliment. Lukewarm in this case means you're neither a believer nor an atheist, and for some reason that pisses off God the most. Time to turn up the zeal and repent pronto, and you'll snag a seat with the Son of God himself. Otherwise, Jesus Christ himself will spew you from his mouth. Imagine that. Coming in at number 10 is Jesus' manifestation teachings. In the Bible, there are some pretty interesting things tucked away, like hidden Easter eggs in a video game, and one of these things involves Jesus and his teachings involving manifesting stuff, like making things happen, essentially. But here's a twist. Some folks say that these teachings were axed from the Bible because supposedly the Pope had a hand in it, not wanting the masses to reach their full potential and potentially dethrone the whole Vatican Empire. So what was this teaching? Apparently, the teachings are about how to pray properly, such that the things that you pray for are actually manifested into existence. Allegedly, this was how Jesus was able to conjure up all those dang miracles. Basically, you're supposed to ask God for things, but ask as though you already have those things. The story goes that the Pope, the big cheese in the Catholic Church, didn't want people messing around with manifesting secrets, and he thought it would be too much power for regular folks, or maybe he just wanted to keep it all to himself. At number 9 are the false saints. Do you know that some stories about saints might be make-believe than actual reality? Take Saint Christopher, for instance, the guy who's supposed to look out for travelers. The Vatican thinks a bunch of the tales about him might actually be fake. Now, they don't exactly hide this. It's just that some die-hard Catholics still want to keep the legend alive, so this church has this mix of fact and fiction in its traditions. They're cool with people still honoring Saint Christopher, even if he may not even have ever existed. But it's not just with him, there's other saints too with stories that might not hold up to history's microscope. So this one's not a big secret that the church is holding on to, it's more about some folks holding on to these stories because it's meaningful to them even if they're not totally historically accurate. If you're enjoying the video so far, please support the channel by pressing like, subscribing to Most Amazing, and ringing the notification bell. It helps the video get seen by more people, and it's free, so what do you got to lose? At number 8, the removed books. The Bible is a big collection of books, but did you know that there were some stories that didn't make the final cut? These books are called the removed books or the Apocrypha. The thing is, these books aren't included in the Bible as we know it today, and some people say that the Pope had a hand in it, trying to keep them secret or hidden. These books might have contained different stories or ideas that didn't quite match up with what the church wanted to preach. Let's take one, for example, the Book of Enoch. It's like diving into a whole other world where angels are doing some pretty wild stuff. You got these dudes called the Watchers who decide to leave heaven and come chill on Earth. But then there's drama. They start falling for women and causing chaos by making giant hybrid offspring called the Nephilim, Bible fantasy fic. Then there's the Gospel of Thomas, a bunch of sayings by Jesus that aren't in the regular Bible. Think of it as Jesus' greatest hits album, but a secret version. These aren't your typical teachings. They're actually pretty out there and make you scratch your head wondering why they didn't make it into Sunday school. Now, did the Pope try to hide these books? Potentially. The reasons why they got left out are still kind of fuzzy. At number 7 is the Bible ban. The Bible is kind of like a treasure map filled with stories and teachings, but it's not always been that easy to crack open. You see, back when dinosaurs roamed, just kidding, not that far back, but around the old and medieval days, the Catholic Church had a tight grip on who could read the Bible and who could, understand it. You see, they made sure that every Bible was kept in Latin, a language not spoken by regular folk, so that uneducated people couldn't dive into it themselves. The church liked having the power to explain it all themselves, and they figured that if the people could read the Bible on their own, then they wouldn't need priests or pastors, and the Vatican would be out of the biz, This may have been the beginnings of the inherent distrust between the people and the church, as that's when people began to believe there were hidden codes or messages in the Bible. Kind of like detectives searching for clues, thinking all these hidden gems predict events or unravel big secrets. Over time, things shifted, and now we've got translations in all sorts of languages, making it accessible to more people. Still, the mystery of what might be hidden in those ancient texts keeps people curious. Speaking of which, at number 6 are the exorcisms. The devil. Yeah, that guy. An old dude once said that the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing the world that he doesn't exist. But in the modern day Vatican City, the devil is considered alive and well. Even the big shots at the Vatican, like Pope John Paul II and Pope Benedict XVI, took the devil seriously. They did exorcisms by, getting rid of demons from possessed people. Father Gabriel Amaroth, a big deal exorcist, claims that he casts out loads of demons every year. Now the question here is how these exorcist dudes are able to perform these rituals, as the Bible isn't exactly explicit on the topic. It's led many to believe about a missing book in the Bible that's been removed to prevent public access. The book being specifically about how to handle the possessed people and vanquish demons. Now, just like before, it was thought that The Exorcist would be useless if everyone's Bible included an exorcism handbook. At number 5, the Bible was used to wield power. Throughout history, the Bible hasn't just been about spreading love and peace, as it's been used to justify mass brutalities and dominions of power. I mean, sure, it's a moral guidebook for many, but it's also been used as a tool by the wicked. The whole idea of forcing people into Christianity through violence or pressure, that's not what Jesus would have wanted. If you believe in that sort of thing, he was more into the love your neighbor vibe. The Bible's been a big deal for rulers and emperors as they use it to justify their actions, sometimes twisting its words to suit their agenda, like using a superhero catchphrase for something totally not heroic. If Jesus were around today, he would certainly not be thrilled about people being forced to convert to Christianity. He'd definitely prefer folks to follow his teachings by choice, not by intimidation. At number 4 is the pagan symbolism and rituals, all hidden throughout the Bible. In history, when Christianity spread, it faced a big question. How do we get people to not just join our new club, but remain devout followers? Well, as it turned out, blending in was key. So they took some things from the pagans, like their symbols and rituals, and gave them a Christian makeover. Imagine this, you're used to celebrating certain holidays or believing in specific symbols, and suddenly someone says, hey, you're a Christian now, but keep doing what you're doing, just call it by a different name. Kind of like a remix. The church wasn't too fussed about the whole fine print of traditions. They cared more about keeping the cash flowing. So they turned minor gods into saints and mixed old rituals with new Christian ideas. pretty sneaky. At number 3 are vain popes. So you know how we often see these majestic portrayals of popes all regal and esteemed? Well, behind those grand paintings and fancy robes, there's a whole side to the story. See, in the medieval times, some popes were quite the extravagant bunch. Picture this: lavish banquets, excessive spending, and a taste for luxuries that would make your head spin. These guys weren't exactly holding back when it came to their lifestyles. They were building extravagant palaces, throwing parties that would make Gatsby blush, and spending money like it was going out of style. Now, some of them even had mistresses and children, which for guys supposed to be celibate, kind of raised a couple eyebrows. But here's the thing, the Vatican prefers to keep these stories under wraps. It's like they're trying to keep a lid on the wild tales of their predecessors' excesses. Yet, as much as they try to conceal it, the history books and documents from that time spill the beans. It's like they say, the truth always finds its way out, even if it's been hidden for centuries. And number 2, dealings with the mafia. Now, this one doesn't have to do with the Bible directly, but I thought I would include it because it just shows how sketchy and susceptible to corruption these organizations are, even if they are the church. See, the unaliving of Pope John I in 1978 was a big mystery. He passed away just 33 days after becoming the Pope, and things seemed really fishy. The official story was that he passed away from a heart attack, but no autopsy was done, leaving doubts. There were whispers about connections between the Vatican and the Mafia, and fast forward to 1982, and its president, Father Paul Marcinkus, stepped down. The bank had to pay over $200 million due to ties with the Mafia. But here's where it gets interesting. Some people think that there might be hidden messages in the Bible about all of this. Like in Godfather Part 3, there's a scene between the Mafia and the Vatican, and some wonder if it was inspired by these real-life events. And coming in at number 1 is the original OG Bible. The Vatican, where the Pope hangs out, has a lot of old texts, including some ancient Bibles. Now the thing is, these Bibles might have some secrets like hidden messages and stuff that the big guys at the Vatican might not want everyone to know about. The deal with the original Bible is pretty mysterious. Some think that there might be things in there that challenge the church's teachings or even shake up their power. Imagine if there were some wild ideas in there that made people question what they've been told for centuries, which could be a pretty big deal. But there's no solid proof that the Vatican is trying to hide away the original Bible. Some folks think that they might because, well, old secrets can be pretty juicy. But until we get a closer look at these original texts, it's all speculation and mystery.
Number 10, locusts. Here is the first and probably most obvious, and to me, probably one of the most horrifying. The Bible makes references to locusts in Revelation 9, and they are referred to as the pit locusts. They are one of 6 disasters that are set to come in the book of Revelation, said that they are not given permission to kill, but exist for the sole purpose of tormenting people. Sounds a bit like my sister. Here's how they are described. Then from the smoke came locusts on the earth, and they were given power like the power of scorpions of the earth. In appearance, the locusts were like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were what looked like crowns of gold. Their faces were like human faces. As we know, locusts are all over the place on earth, being a species of short-horned grasshopper. I don't know how much biblical tormenting they do, but in 2016, enough locusts to cover 270,000 square miles invaded Russia, and having to even read that headline was torment to me. Number 9, Behemoth. The references to the behemoth come from the book of Job, not Job. As some of you pointed out, I was a silly little fool last time I said it and pronounced it wrong. So there you go, and I hope you're happy now. Now here is how the behemoth creature is described. Behold Behemoth, which I made as I made you. He eats grass like an ox. Behold his strength in his loins, and his power in the muscles of his belly. He makes his tail stiff like a cedar. The sinews of his thighs are knit together. His bones are tubes of bronze, his limbs like bars of iron. Many people believe that the behemoth is actually just an exaggeration of a hippopotamus. And if you know anything about hippos, you know that they're downright terrifying, and you definitely do not want one for Christmas. Hippos are known as the deadliest land mammal on the planet and are responsible for about 500 deaths in Africa each year. They also have the strongest bite force of all land animals and have been known to take on full packs of lions. Number 8, unicorns. Okay, don't click off just yet. Yes, I know unicorns probably don't actually exist, but this is similar to the behemoth for the fact that people think the description of the unicorn was actually a different real-world creature. So here's how they were described in Deuteronomy. A firstborn bull, he has majesty, and his horns are the horns of a wild ox. With them he shall gore the peoples, all of them, to the ends of the earth. Because of the description of having one horn, many people believe that this was actually referencing a rhinoceros. Like the hippo, they are a real-world creature that is pretty damn terrifying. Because of their poor vision, rhinos can often be incredibly unpredictable, charging after things if they are unable to identify whether or not they are a threat. A large full-grown rhino can weigh up to 3,000 pounds and are capable of flipping over a fully loaded vehicle. So if you're ever on a safari, you may want to keep an eye out for these modern-day unicorns. Number 7. Snakes. Snakes are referenced many times in the Bible. One creature that was believed to be a reference to a poisonous viper is the cockatrice. They are said to live in a hole in the ground and can kill a man or animal with only one bite. They are described as possessing the most deadly powers, plants withering at its touch, and men and animals dying poisoned by its look. While you may not immediately think of a snake as a horrifying creature, maybe you or someone you know keeps one as a pet, there are some pretty terrifying snakes out there across the world. The saw-scaled viper is said by scientists to be the deadliest snake of all, apparently being responsible for more deaths than all other snake species combined. One of the largest snakes in the world is the green anaconda, which can grow to around 30 feet long. They eat around 40 pounds of food a day and are one of the only snake species capable of consuming a human. Number 6. Leviathan. The Leviathan is one of the main scary creatures described in the Bible, thought by many to be Satan taking on another form. Here's how he is described. In that day the Lord will take his sharp, great, and mighty sword and bring judgment on Leviathan the fleeing serpent, Leviathan the coiling serpent, and he will slay the dragon of the sea. Like the behemoth, he is said to be slain by the Lord. While some people think that the Leviathan is some sort of mythical sea monster, other people believe that this was a description of a massive crocodile. Fossil evidence of the largest crocodile ever showed the creature to be 40 feet long and weighing 17,000 pounds, but those prehistoric crocs obviously don't still exist today. The largest crocodile recorded in recent history was named Lolong and lived in the Philippines, measuring 20 feet long and weighing over 2,000 pounds. Crocodiles also have the strongest bite of any animal in the world, applying over 5,000 pounds of pressure. Number 5. Werewolves. Alright, here's the part of the list where we move out of science and get into the more speculative and paranormal, because right now I'm going to convince you that werewolves were both in the Bible and still exist today. So here we go. In the book of Daniel, we see God cursing a man into becoming an animal, sending him to live with the beasts in the field until he learns his lesson. Werewolves have also been mentioned in other texts before the beginning of Christianity, the past nation of Scythia believing that there were people who turned into wolves at every full moon. Okay, now let me get into this bizarre and wacky conspiracy theory that I just love. Werewolves exist today because the royal family are werewolves. The next 4 people in line for the throne were all born under a full or new moon, and their royal blood is actually werewolf blood. Queen Elizabeth herself is not a werewolf, but is aware of them and doesn't want Charles to take the throne and start a new era of werewolf domination, and that's why she's hanging on for so long. If you don't believe me, I don't care. Number 4. Dinosaurs. Okay, no, dinosaurs do not still exist today, unless you count birds, but I think we are close enough to a real-world Jurassic Park that I can put this on the list. Again, if you have any complaints about this, take it to the complaints department down below and I will ignore it and scroll past. In the book of Job, God is speaking of real creatures when he describes an enormous creature that has a tail that sways like a cedar, is not alarmed by raging waters, and its limbs are like rods of iron. Probably the behemoth, and many people believe that the behemoth could have also been a dinosaur known as the Brontosaurus, one of the main dinosaurs you can see featured in Jurassic Park. It is also described as ranking first among God's creations, and since the dinos were here long before us, it would make sense that a dino is what this passage is in reference to. And while Brontosauruses were herbivores and overall not that threatening to human life, dinosaurs were still massive and are pretty terrifying to look at, even just in museums. Number 3. Aliens. Alright, we finally made it to my obligatory aliens are totally real entry. And you're probably wondering, I don't remember aliens being in the Bible. Well, they were, and no, I am not crazy. Yet. One species that is mentioned in the Bible is the Nephilim, born from angels mating with human women. God was not a huge fan of this and wiped them out in a flood and subsequent wars. The Nephilim are sometimes described as falling from the sky, and it's led to some, totally sane, people believing that the Nephilim were actually descriptions of aliens. There is tons of believable evidence out there surrounding the existence of aliens, especially coming from the release of the Pentagon's UAV reports. If you haven't seen my other video on that, then you should go watch it because I honestly really enjoyed making it. I also don't think you need government evidence to believe that aliens are out there. The universe is infinite, and you just have to believe that there is at least one other planet out there capable of sustaining life forms. It just makes sense. I am not crazy. Aliens are real. Number 2, vampires. Now you are going to think I'm totally crazy because I'm now going to tell you that not just aliens and werewolves were in the Bible, but yes, vampires as well. One of the main references to what people believe to be a description of vampires is this passage. There are those whose teeth are swords, whose fangs are knives, to devour the poor from off the earth, the needy from among mankind. While some people believe this is just colorful imagery for being greedy, there is reference to vampires all the way back in ancient Egypt. So while they don't use the word vampire, it's just because they didn't have that word yet. Now let me tell you why vampires definitely exist and are out there right now. The royal family has vampires. Yes, Prince Charles is apparently not just an evil werewolf overlord, but also a vampire. Prince Charles has a fascination with Transylvania, and while promoting a television show in 2011, he revealed that he is actually related to Vlad the Impaler, the inspiration for Dracula. So yes, vampires are real, and they are in the royal family. That is a fact. Number 1, demons. Alright, now here's one that some of you are more likely to believe. Obviously, alongside angels, demons are a huge presence within the Bible. They are usually said to be fallen angels that can usually be found hanging out in hell with their good pal Satan. Many people believe that these demons are real and they can be found interfering with human life. If you've watched any other video on this channel, then you know that there are plenty of stories and real life accounts from real people who believe that they have had run-ins with demons or even conversed with the devil himself. There are people who have stories of using Ouija boards and communing with evil spirits, purposefully making a deal with the devil, criminals who claim to have been possessed by demons when they committed their crimes, and the countless exorcisms that have taken place throughout history. Seems like plenty of evidence that these rude dudes are pretty real.
Starting with number 10, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. According to the final book of the Bible titled The Apocalypse of John, not the disciple, just some other dude named John, the first stage of the end of the world is going to be marked by the opening of the 7 sacred seals, the first 4 of which each represent one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, like most things in the Bible, the details are quite vague, but we can infer that these cowboys ain't of the friendly variety. The first one's definitely the least intimidating, said to be a crowned rider on a white horse carrying a bow with which to conquer. Following conquest is the horseman of war, who appears on a red horse and is granted a great sword to take peace from the earth. As you history buffs may know, with war comes famine, and so the following horseman carries a pair of balances or a scale in their hands on the back of a black horse. And finally, the 4th seal is opened, revealing a rider on a pale horse. This rider is the only one who's named. It's the very essence of the unliving itself, the Grim Reaper, if you will. Wherever the Reaper goes, Hades follows, and unlike the first 3 horsemen, who are each given a weapon or tool of some sort, this last guy is given a quarter of the earth to eliminate with sword, hunger, and disease, and the beasts of the earth. Now, before I get into the cataclysms of cosmic proportions that will forever change the topography of Earth, well, until it's destroyed, if you're enjoying the video so far, do me a favor and let YouTube know you want to see more of my face by giving the video a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that notification bell. And as promised, at number 9, we have the cataclysms. World-shaping events of epic proportions are littered throughout the text, the first of which beginning with the opening of the 5th seal. P.S. for those of you keeping track, the 5th seal is pretty insignificant, just the souls of martyrs begging to be avenged, to which God essentially replies with, "Alright, hold my beer." We start with a great earthquake during which the sun becomes as black as a sackcloth of hair, and the moon as red as blood. What do celestial bodies have to do with shifting tectonic plates, you ask? I don't know, beats me. Then every mountain and island is moved out of its place, forcing people of the earth to retreat into caves, for some reason. After the 7th seal is open, an angel with a golden censer filled with heavenly fire, and throws it down to earth. And what follows are peals of thunder, rumblings, flashes of lightning, and an earthquake. Next, 7 heavenly trumpets are sounded, the first causing hail, fire, and blood to rain down on the earth, scorching a third of all of the Earth's plant life. Next, the planet is hit with a meteor, which is described in the text as a great burning mountain falling from the sky and landing in the ocean, eliminating a third of sea creatures and a third of ships at sea. Similarly, a great star named Wormwood falls from heaven and poisons a third of all rivers and springs. When the 4th trumpet sounds, a third of the sun, the moon, and stars are dimmed, creating complete darkness for a third of the day and night. Lots of thirds there. Now there's gonna be a few more catastrophes as we continue forward, but for now, God decides to take a break with number 8, Abaddon the Destroyer, Angel of the Abyss. Can't quite have a biblical end of days without a swarm of locusts tearing it up. Well, I mean, to call these things locusts is a bit of an understatement. It's more like a swarm of tiny demons. Let me explain. Essentially, with the sound of the 5th trumpet, a star falls to Earth, creating a bottomless pit from which smoke rises like a gigantic furnace to darken out the sun and the sky again. From out of this smoke, locusts with scorpion stingers and human faces and hair with lion's teeth and dressed in tiny iron chest plates. Editor, can you pull up a depiction? Good lord, look at that. Gotta love the biblically accurate. The locust abominations are joined by their leader, Angel of the Abyss, who's referred to as Abaddon in Hebrew and Apollyon in Greek. Abaddon meaning the destroyer, and Abaddon translating either to destruction or doom. Yeah, not the kind of angel you'd want to bump into. And speaking of evil angels, at number 7 we have the 4 angels of the Euphrates River. Now we're not given many details about these particular angels other than the fact that they've been held captive at the ancient river which serves as the boundary between Assyria and Israel. Now these guys behave more like demons, considering that demonic spirits are just angels who've been turned to the dark side. And so calling them angels seems like we're giving them a bit more credit than they deserve. I mean, at least the last dude was named Apollyon. Anyways, the role these 4 angels play once released is to unalive a third of all mankind through a vast cavalry of unfathomable magnitude. Now, of course, it wouldn't be the Book of Revelations without some terrifying amalgamations, and so naturally, instead of riding regular old horses, the army of mounts are depicted as having snake tails and lion heads which breathe fire, smoke, and sulfur, because why not? At number 6 is Satan. Once again, it wouldn't be the biblical end of the world if the devil himself weren't there to crash the party. John here depicts old Lucy as an enormous 7-headed dragon with 10 horns and 7 crowns. I'm not even gonna try to pretend what those particular numbers mean, but in this case, if I had to guess, I'd say that given that this is Satan, the 7 crowns could probably represent the 7 princes of hell, otherwise known as the 7 deadly sins. Now, I could be wrong, and there are definitely more satisfying explanations out there that I'd be happy to cover in another video, God willing. Now, we know that this dragon is Lucy because John explicitly identifies the dragon as the old serpent Satan himself, but even if he didn't, we can still make this assumption given that one of the first things this dragon does is drag a third of the stars in heaven with its tail and throws them down to the earth, a reference to how Satan was joined by a third of all the angels when they were kicked out of heaven. To sum it up, Lucy here is hell-bent on waging war upon and annihilating the people of God, and so to do so, he employs the help of... At number 5 is Satan. It wouldn't be the biblical end of the world if the devil himself weren't there to crash the party. John here depicts old Lucy as an enormous 7-headed dragon with 10 horns and 7 crowns. I'm not even gonna try to pretend what those particular numbers mean, because if I had to guess, I'd say that given that this is Satan, the 7 crowns could represent the 7 princes of hell, otherwise known as the 7 deadly sins. Now, I could be wrong, and there are definitely more satisfying explanations out there that I'd be happy to cover in another video, God willing. Now, we know this dragon is Lucy because John explicitly identifies the dragon as that old serpent Satan himself, but even if he didn't, we could still make this assumption given that one of the first things this dragon does is drag a third of the stars in heaven with his tail and throws them down to earth, a reference to how Satan was joined by a third of all the angels when they were kicked out of heaven. So to sum it up, Lucy's hell-bent on waging war upon and annihilating the people of God, and to do so, he employs the help of number 4, the beast and the false prophet. The first of the 2 beasts emerges from the sea and is sporting 7 heads and 10 horns, but this time rocking 10 crowns as opposed to Satan's 7. The beast itself took on the form of a leopard with bear paws and lion's mouths. One of the 7 heads has a distinguishing wound, which looks as though it should have been fatal, but the wound is healed, and the head is very much alive. The heathens of the world marvel over this beast, who's given the power and authority to rule over all of mankind and talk a bunch of smack about God. Next, another beast emerges from the earth, but this one's only got 1 head. Widely regarded as the false prophet, or the Antichrist, though John never explicitly calls him this, this beast is described as having 2 horns like a lamb, but the voice of a dragon. The second beast, which I'm just gonna call the Antichrist to make things easier, performs performs miracles for mankind and is given authority to command on behalf of the first beast. And so the Antichrist commands people to build a statue of the first beast and breathes life into that statue, allowing the statue of the first beast to speak and demand that all those who refuse to worship the image of the beast to be executed, and also forced everyone, young, old, rich, and poor, free or slaved, to receive a mark on their right hands or foreheads so that they could not buy or sell things unless they had the mark of the beast. And that, ladies and gents, is why the number 666, the mark of the beast, is associated with the devil. At number 3, the kingdom of evil. The final 7 plagues, which are described as 7 bowls poured onto the earth, anticlimactically enough, mostly serve to finish off what was left, with the previous plague being the manifestation of malignant and festering sores and boils to break out on those who carried the mark of the beast and worshipped its image. Bowl 2 is poured onto the sea, turning it to blood and eliminating all marine life. The third does the same with all fresh water, leaving the remaining inhabitants of Earth with nothing but bodily fluids to drink. The fourth bowl is poured onto the sun, allowing it to scorch people with fire. Bowl 5 shrouds the kingdom of evil in perpetual darkness, leaving the people gnawing at their tongues in agony for some reason. Now the sixth bowl is perhaps the most intriguing, and I'll break it down in just a second, but before I do, I just want to get out of the way that bowl number 7 causes a great earthquake and a heavy hailstorm, somehow resulting in every island and mountain completely disappearing from Earth. At number 2 is the Battle of Armageddon. Now let me quickly backtrack to bowl number 6, which saw the Euphrates River dry up completely, thus paving the way for the kings of the East to come and invade. It's during this time that the 3 demonic frogs, yes you heard me right, emerge from the mouths of either beast and the dragon and go on to assemble the kings in a place called Armageddon in preparation for the battle against God. And in the other corner of the ring we have the army of God, consisting of 144,000 pure of heart from the 12 tribes of Israel, who will ultimately emerge victorious over the beast, culminating with the destruction of New Babylon. Sidebar, the Euphrates River is currently actively drying up at an alarming rate, so do with that info as you will. At number 1 is Judgment Day, the moment we've all been waiting for, the end of it all. Well, that is if you're on Team Satan. The beast and the false prophet are cast into the lake of fire, representing a permanent state of being unalive, or the second unaliving, if that makes any sense. Now the dragon, on the other hand, is cast into the bottomless pit for 1,000 years, while the resurrected martyrs get to party with Christ in the meantime. Once a millennium has passed, the dragon is released and gathers the easily deceived for a final battle at the holy city, but the dragon and his army are defeated and finally cast into the lake of fire along with the wicked, the essence of death itself, and Hades, the Greek god of the underworld for some reason. And now that all the suffering in the state of unaliveness has been totally purged from the world, God himself comes to party with humanity.
Starting off this list in our number 10 spot, we have the kingdom. This passage is one that comes from Matthew 7:21-23, and it reads, "Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of thy Father who is in heaven. On that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you. Depart from me, you workers of lawlessness." Some people feel as though this passage is suggesting that there are people out there who believe themselves to be Christians, and people who are thinking that they are going to go to heaven or paradise when they die, but in reality, they don't know God at all, and he sees things very differently than they do. Definitely drives home the fact that not all good work lands people a spot in heaven. In our number 9 spot today, we have the Judgment of Solomon. When 2 women approached King Solomon with a question, no one had any idea of what horrors were about to ensue. The women wanted to know which one of them was the mother of the baby, and the king had quite an interesting solution. 1 Kings 3:24 reads, "And the king said, bring me a sword. And they brought a sword before the king. And the king said, divide the living child in 2, and give half to the one and half to the other." Yeah, the king suggested that they just cut the baby in half and split it. I mean, why didn't they think of that? Don't worry, no babies were harmed in this particular instance, as the true mother of the child was revealed when she sacrificed her life with the baby in order to save its life, while the other woman was on board with the whole slicing it in half thing. The passage finishes off by reading, "The king gave his decision. Give the living baby to the first woman. No one is going to kill this baby. She is the real mother." The word got around, everyone in Israel's heard of the king's judgment. They were all in awe of the king, realizing realizing that it was God's wisdom that enabled him to judge truly. In our number 8 spot today, we have the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. This story starts off when angels begin trying to visit Lot, who is a very devout and pious man. Things quickly go awry, however, as before they can enter his house, they are attacked by an angry mob from Sodom. Lot tries to save the angels, and to do this, he offers up his own daughters to the mob. I mean, like I mentioned, he's very devout, so I'm sure he means well, but if I was one of those daughters, I would have been pissed. Thankfully, the angels end up finding a different alternative. They instead blind the mob, and the daughters are spared. The angels then lead Lot and co. away from the burning city. As they leave, however, Lot's wife looks back on her burning home just to get like one last glimpse. Can we really blame her? Well, apparently someone can, because when she looks back, she is immediately turned into a pillar of salt due to her apparent lack of faith. If you can believe this, that isn't even the craziest part of the story. But the next part is not written for YouTube guidelines, so there's not much of it that I can repeat. Let's just say that Lot and his daughters find a cave to hide out in, and they decide to continue on the lineage. I'm not really sure what the lesson in this one is, to be honest. Don't look back as you're fleeing your home, offer up your own daughter for sacrifice. I don't know, man. In our number 7 spot today, we have Gabriel. So in many of the texts, angels are like the messengers of God, but they also have their own powers and abilities that they can use as they see fit. In one particular story, Archangel Gabriel is sent to announce the birth of John the Baptist to Zechariah, but when Gabriel does this, he gets a less than enthusiastic response from Zechariah. In fact, this response was one of protest, and Gabriel did not like that. He said, "I am Gabriel, I stand in the presence of God, and I have been sent to speak to you and to bring you this good news. But now, because you do not believe my words, you will become mute, unable to speak until the day these things occur." Yeah, the guy didn't like being dismissed, so he just took away his ability to speak for a bit to teach him a lesson. I guess the lesson here is to listen to an angel if it appears to you and tells you that you're gonna have a kid? I'm not sure. At the end of the day, it's a bit of a dark way to deliver the good news. He's like, do you want the good news first or the bad news? In our number 6 spot today, we have John the Baptist. This tale starts off when King Herod had John the Baptist imprisoned after he spoke out against the king for divorcing and then remarrying his own brother's wife. While in jail, the king was throwing a huge party, and part of the entertainment was when the king's new stepdaughter was dancing for all the men. The king became completely enthralled with her. I know, I'm creeped out too, but he is so obsessed that he offers her anything that she wants. She has quite an unexpected answer, however, as her response is that she wants John the Baptist's head brought to her on a platter. The king doesn't really want to do this, but he also promised her anything she wished, and this was what she wanted. Thus, the beheading of John the Baptist took place, and she was served his head on a platter in front of the whole party. Imagine you're just like enjoying a nice charcuterie plate, some wine, enjoying the party, and then someone brings out a head on a platter. Yeah, terrible party, appetite fully ruined. John the Baptist, although he met a cruel fate, would later go on to be sainted. In our number 5 spot today, we have King Herod's fate. Back with another King Herod story. This time, he is meeting his own fate, and man, it is truly not ideal. Basically, he shows up, he's doing some public speaking, and in doing so, he is challenged. Despite this challenge, he still refuses to acknowledge God as the one true God. If we know anything about that in the Bible, it usually does not end well for those who don't acknowledge this. This leads to Herod immediately being struck down by God. I mean, he wasn't just gonna stand for that, especially in front of a bunch of his followers, but that isn't just the average striking down. He didn't just die right there on the spot. Oh no, his fate had to be much worse than instant death. Instead, he likely wished that were the case, as he met his fate by slowly being eaten alive by worms from the inside out. Slow, agonizing, completely dreadful. This story truly is not for the faint of heart, but it serves as a great reminder for those who believe in the stories of the Bible. In our number 4 spot today, we have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. These 4 entities are described as part of the prophecy by John in the book of Revelations. Many people take their story to mean that these horsemen are those who will bring the apocalypse, and that they are the harbingers of the last judgment. It is said that pestilence or plague will ride in on a white horse, war on a red horse, and famine on a black horse, and death on a pale horse. The story in the Bible speaks of how a quarter of the Earth's population will be killed by a combination of all of the horsemen. All in all, while these horsemen definitely have creepy descriptions, nothing is as creepy as the thought of them bringing the apocalypse with them. In our number 3 spot today, we have Joram and the Mothers. For this one, I'll start with the passage and we can dive into what it all really means after. So 2 Kings 6:28-29 reads, "And the king said unto her, What aileth thee? And she answered, This woman said unto me, Give thy son, that we may eat him today, and we will eat my son tomorrow. So we boiled my son, and did eat him. And I said unto her the next day, Give thy son, that we may eat him, and she hath hid her son." If you didn't quite catch that, this passage tells the story of 2 starving women who agree to their own children in order to survive. Once they eat the first woman's child, the second woman doesn't hold up her end of the deal and instead hides her son to protect him. The story is clearly very gruesome and horrible, but many people believe its desperation and deceit shows not only the king but also the reader the severity of what people are going through when they are enduring an enemy siege. In our number 2 spot today, we have Raphael. Raphael is one of the true archangels and he is the 4th oldest of the 5. He is a powerful healer, a guardian angel, and a great fighter, but there is just one unsettling story in particular that I really want to talk about, and that story comes from the Book of Enoch. In this story, Raphael is in a battle with the demon Azazel. Raphael is able to defeat the demon, but decides to subject him to a fate worse than death. The story writes, "Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Duodel, and cast him therein, and place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light, and on the day of the great judgment he shall be cast into the fire." If that wasn't clear enough, Raphael tied this demon up, buried him alive in a hole full of rocks in the middle of the desert, where he now just gets to wait until he can be thrown into a fire and burned alive. I gotta say, that is very dark, but it has become abundantly clear, do not mess with an angel, okay? In our number 1 spot today, we have the nephews. Moses had 2 nephews named Nadab and Abihu, and their father Aaron was quite important to the priest community, and he was the only one who was meant to make sacrifices to God. These 2, however, decided that they too should be good enough to burn an offering, but things did not go to plan for them. You know, no one can start feeling too good about themselves without some kind of consequence. We don't want anyone getting too big of an ego around here. When this happened, God decided to send a huge fire from heaven that completely engulfed both of the men and just fried them to ash on the spot. Right where they stood, they ended up completely charred, and everyone learned a very valuable lesson that day, it seems.